Our next presenter is Matthew Clark. He is an attorney turned artist. Matthew Clark is here to talk about some of his works, including one that you may have seen in the Des Moines International Airport, but you didn't even know it. So please welcome Matthew.
Thanks a lot for letting me come up and talk a little bit about my artwork. I warn you right off the start that there's no tie between the slides that I have up here and what I'm going to plan to talk about. I give no guarantees that I'll actually talk the whole time. So if I sit down early, it's because I've ran out of things to say. My artwork, I would guess, tends to focus more on the type of things, issues that Caleb was talking about. I'm not really interested in visceral reaction, although I think sometimes my artwork does that. I'm more interested in contemplative engagement of the audience. Those subsurface conditions that people think about, that motivate behaviors and motivate thought, that drive us to act the way that we act. Those are the types of issues that I'm trying to address with my artwork. I'm certainly different from the perspective that a moralist is in your camp in terms of the contemporary art world. But I have a piece that talks about moral issues too. You'll see one in here that has a beaver protruding from a computer screen, and that was essentially my thought process on how do we engage the culture in moral discussions. That was something that I taxidermied myself. I ordered that beaver off the internet thinking I was going to get a tan skin, and when I got it in the mail, it was still fresh. So I had to figure out what to do, so I bought a taxidermy book and a video and figured out how to do it. My artwork addresses just any idea. Usually it's based off something I've been reading, either a philosophy book or just any kind of book that I've been reading, and is my attempt to essentially give three-dimensional form to some kind of idea that I'm testing. It's not necessarily to make a statement. I don't pretend to try to tell you anything or tell you that you have to think a certain way about an idea, but it's my attempt to essentially engage someone and say, let's test these ideas together. This particular piece of artwork was in the airport, and it was based on the play by Thornton Wilder called Our Town. I hated reading that. I thought it was thoroughly depressing. but there was a line in the book, in the play, that says, talks about how they're moving about on clouds, essentially wasting time as if they had an endless supply of it. And that gave me an idea of how do we address use of our kind of non-productive time. How do we do that in our culture? What's an appropriate use of that time? And that was kind of the inspiration behind that. This one is one that I had actually, at the place I used to work, I set that, I came in the middle of the night and I built that wall and then had that picture of my head coming through the wall installed for the next morning. And it was just kind of fun to get a reaction in terms of, seeing what people think about it, and also, that's my own personal little statement about my feelings at the time. This one, I don't know. I mean, this one is one of the few happy sculptures I've made. And I seriously mean that. I think this was inspired by a act of violence by my dog on a toy that we had. And I just love the way that, this figure was without a head, but yet still smiling. And I thought, what a wonderful perspective. So I decided to make this, and I enlarged it, and I don't know, it was in Moberg Gallery for a little while. I just actually picked it up today. This piece, too, was something I set up. I had 300 no trespassing signs in my yard. It's that kind of idea about, I was kind of making fun of myself and how I try to act like I'm kind of delusionally self-reliant and that I don't need anybody. That's my essentially poke at myself in that respect. This was based off an old philosophy book that I was reading at the time, and actually the book that some people say was kind of the basis for the Matrix. And in some respects, it was kind of, Babel. You had to kind of be able to speak that language. But I thought it was an interesting idea to try to kind of look at in terms of people's development of icons and how they focus on particular objects in the development of those icons. I'm trying to think. I'd say in terms of my work, I don't really get inspiration other than my reading. I don't really get inspiration from where I'm working. Mainly, it's probably I've described it as probably 30% or 40% compulsion and 60% work. Wrapped up in a big heap of dysfunction. And that's really the focus of, I think some of my greatest strengths and victories are really the result of my dysfunctions, and my inspiration arises out of just working. When you're not inspired, you work, and when you're inspired, you work. And that's really what I think. This is a sculpture I made for a friend that was being deployed to Afghanistan. The Red Bull, and the idea was that it reflected the warrior when he looked at it. It's something you could hang on the wall, but also kind of honored his mission. This is a sculpture I did that's in a brew pub in eastern Iowa, and it was just kind of fun. I started out making traditional bronze sculpture and metal furniture, and then that's kind of evolved to more of the conceptual art. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. From this point, I don't have much to say. I could go through and tell you what I ate today or what I did, but that's pretty much it. So thanks a lot.